Cue and Review, celebrating 40 years of audio production, welcomes you to this week's edition of the Glasgow Times Sports Podcast, recorded from our studio in the Bishopbriggs Media Centre and by our volunteers working from home. Keep up to date with Cue and Review news via our Facebook, Twitter or Instagram, at Cue and Review, that's @CUEANDREVIEW, or get in touch with us directly by emailing information@cueandreview.com, that's INFORMATION @CUEANDREVIEW.com, or by calling 0141 772 3976. Please like and share our podcast and give us constructive feedback.
Evening Times Sport, July 25. Celtic pair head to Austria. Report by Ryan McGinley. Celtic are aiming to send two of their younger players to Admira Wacker. The Daily Record has reported that regular Celtic B-team squad players Toby Oyuwuemi and Matthew Anderson will both head to the Austria second tier for a year's loan deal. The report effectively confirms that there is now a partnership between the two sides, as was previously rumoured. It is hoped that this will be the start of a consistent relationship which will help both sides with their respective ambitions. Goalkeeper Oyuwuemi was previously out on loan to Cork City, but injuries curtailed his spell at the League of Ireland Premier Division side. He was signed from Tottenham Hotspur's academy in 2019. For left-back Anderson, this will be his first spell in football away from Celtic in his young career. Admira Wacker have won the Austria Bundesliga 9 times in their history, but were relegated to the second tier 2 seasons ago. Meanwhile, Celtic misfit Liam Shaw admits he is eager for more game time after sealing a season-long loan deal with Wigan. The midfielder will team up with former Celtic and Scotland striker and Hibs manager Sean Maloney south of the border, and is convinced the move will be a success. He said, "I'm really happy to be here. I just can't wait to get started. I'm looking forward to meeting everyone, getting to know the boys, and getting down to business. It's a massive club, and when I spoke to the manager, I really bought into his vision. I cannot wait to get started. It will suit my game. The manager wants to play good positive football and be aggressive, which is what I want to do. I feel it's a really good fit." Report by Ryan McGinley. Evening Times Sport, July 25. Stephen Davis on his Rangers injury frustrations. Report by Ian Collin. Stephen Davis has revealed his injury frustrations, but insists he hopes to be back in action sooner rather than later. The record-breaking 140-cap Northern Ireland captain is currently recovering from a cruciate knee ligament injury that saw him miss out on the second half of last season with Rangers. The 38-year-old last played on December 15 last year and saw his contract expire with the Light Blues in the summer. However, he has been kept on to work toward full fitness, at which point manager Michael Beale has said a decision will be made on the player's future. Davis said, "I'm still a little bit away. It's been a bit frustrating. Unfortunately, us footballers are not the most patient people, but it is an injury that needs a little bit of time. So I'm just going through my rehab and hopefully we'll be back sooner rather than later." Davis returned to Rangers for a second permanent spell in July 2019 and now has over 350 appearances for them from 4 separate stints. As well as club action, injury has forced the former Fulham and Aston Villa midfielder to miss the return of Northern Ireland manager Michael O'Neill and the start of his country's Euro 2024 qualifying campaign. Davis told the BBC, "I was really excited when O'Neill got the job again and came back in. He's been dealt a tough hand with the number of injuries we have had, with some of the more experienced players, but it's been great to see some of the younger players stepping up and showing their quality. There's a lot to be optimistic about." Report by Ian Collin. Evening Times Sport, July 25. A look at Rangers' potential Champions League opponents. Rangers are preparing to face either Servette or Racing Genk in the Champions League third qualifying round following the draw yesterday. The pair face off in round 2 of qualifying, with the winner advancing to meet Rangers, the first leg taking place at Ibrox on August 8 or 9, and the return leg on August 15. If they are victorious over the 2-leg tie, Rangers would go on to a play-off round where they could meet the likes of PSV Eindhoven or Marseille. But here is a look at Rangers' potential third-round opponents. Servette. The Geneva-based side finished second in the Swiss Super League last year, but are under new management in the form of René Weiler, who returned to Switzerland following spells in Egypt and Japan. Servette endured major financial problems in the early part of the century and were absent from European football for the best part of 2 decades. Recent forays into Europe have not been successful. They lost 1-0 to Reims in the second qualifying round of the Europa League in 2021 and were defeated 3-2 in aggregate to Molde at the same stage of the Europa Conference League the following season. Genk. Genk had topped the Belgian Pro League, but lost out to Antwerp in the playoffs last season. They have enjoyed recent domestic success, winning the title in 2019 and finishing runners-up in 2021, as well as last term. They also won the Belgian Cup in 2021, after being losing finalists 3 years earlier. Genk were in the Europa League group stage 2 seasons ago, finishing bottom of their group despite claiming 5 points, one of them following a 2-2 draw with West Ham. They went straight into the Champions League group stage 4 years ago, but managed only 1 point from games against RB Salzburg, Napoli and Liverpool. Evening Times Sport, July 25. Harman's golf fairy tale of underdog to top dog, reported on by Nick Roger. It was a display of tremendous resilience and dogged defiance. And no, I'm not talking about Brian Harman's Open Championship win. I'm honouring the gallant durability of the tent a colleague and myself were staying in on the 22-metre line of the pitch at the Hoylake Rugby Club. The thing was a marvel of the modern age. After all that ruddy rain on Sunday, your Druitt correspondent trudged despondently back to base camp, fully expecting to be greeted by the chaotic sight of crumpled, twisted, flapping polyester sheets, guy ropes strewn in useless abandon, and the kind of widespread appalling squalor you get at the end of a drenched, mud-splattered Glastonbury festival. Instead, our billet for the week stood as majestically as the Taj Mahal. Despite the unrelenting torrents, not a drop of the wet stuff had penetrated the bolt hole. Well, until fumble figures here spilled a chipped mug of Chateau Lafitte Rothschild in the tent's vestibule as we celebrated a job well done. In the wake of his Hoylake conquest, Harman revealed that he was looking forward to getting back to the sprawling acreage of his farm to try out his new tractor. He would have had a jolly old time at the rugby club yesterday morning as a tractor was brought in to haul out the caravans that had sagged into the quagmire. It was one of the most eye-opening scenes I've witnessed on a campsite since Barbara Windsor went ping in that carry-on caper of yore. It was a case of carry on regardless for Harman, as he weathered the storm quite brilliantly on a soaking Sunday to become the champion golfer of the year. The 36-year-old was a low-key winner, but he certainly hit the high notes with an exemplary display of calm and calculated golf that carried him to a mighty 6-shot victory. He led by 5 after 36 holes, slept well on that lead, then cemented his 5-shot lead on day 3 and slept well on it again. That showed tremendous mental fortitude, because holding such an advantage for that long and trying to protect it ain't easy. Those playing catch-up can throw caution to the wind, and if they come up short in their chase, get plaudits for giving it a good go. If you slip up from such a front-running position of authority, however, there's withering talk of capitulations, and dare we say it, choking. Harman was number 1 in fairways hit. He missed just 1 putt inside 10 feet all week, and he found just 2 bunkers over the course of 72 holes. It was a masterclass. Had Rory McIlroy, John Rahm, Tommy Fleetwood, or any of the other stars produced a performance of such majesty, all and sundry would be cooing themselves hoarse. And what if Harman's story had been in any other sport? The plucky, unheralded campaigner, going from underdog to top dog, would probably be roared about from the rooftops. In golf, though, it can lead to shrugging indifference. Driving back up the road yesterday, One Sports bulletin on the car radio started with the Women's Football World Cup, moved on to a bit about Wilfried Zaha leaving Crystal Palace, and finished with a preview of the World Aquatics Championship. Harman's Open win didn't tickle the fancy. In the pursuit to capture hearts and minds beyond the dedicated followers of the game, golf often muddles on in the margins. Harman is not a star, and the softly spoken, unassuming American won't mind that. He's not a journeyman either, because his record and his pedigree is better than that somewhat disparaging label implies. What he is, of course, is a very, very good golfer who has put in the hard yards and has finally been rewarded with the ultimate prize. Everybody who gets into golf, or indeed any sport, does it for fun. We may be hopeless at it, but it's a game and it's good fun. When it becomes a job, though, then that initial enjoyment can easily dissipate. For Harman, the enjoyment is in the toil and the never-ending quest for improvement in a game of tiny margins. Someone once told me, "You should do the things that make you lose track of time," Harman said. He must read this column online. And for me, a lot of times when I'm practicing hitting balls, or putting them, or putting them when I'm at home, I lose track of time. That's how I know I really enjoy it. Harman certainly enjoyed his day in the sun, or the rain. The men's majors are now done and dusted for another year. We've had 4 in 16 weeks. In a fevered program, they get packed into the calendar in a way that resembles me trying to shove my sleeping bag back into a storage sack that seems wholly unfit for the purpose. It could be worse. On the women's front, there are 4 majors shoehorned into a gasping 2-month spell. For the men, there is now a wait of more than 260 days until the Grand Slam occasions resume. April's Masters, of course, benefits from this prolonged sense of anticipation. The rest, though, could do with some more room to breathe. After a week battering away at the Open Coldface, meanwhile, I could do with a breather myself, says Nick the Roger. Evening Times Sport, July 25. Premier League chief not too concerned about Saudi Arabia rise. Report by Martin Macmillan. Premier League Chief Executive Richard Masters is not too concerned for now about Saudi Arabia's ascendancy in football, as he reasoned it takes time to become a dominant force. Al Hilal submitted a world record £259 million offer for Paris Saint-Germain forward Kylian Mbappe, who has 12 months left on his current deal and has been given permission to speak to the Saudi club. Cristiano Ronaldo and Karim Benzema have already joined the country's pro league, while Liverpool have agreed a deal with Al Ettifaq, managed by Steven Gerrard, to sell their captain Jordan Henderson. Kylian Mbappe has attracted a world record bid from a Saudi Arabia club. Something new is obviously happening, Masters told BBC Sport. The Saudi Pro League have stated they want to be a top 10 league by 2030. They are investing in players and managers to try to raise the profile of the league and clubs. It has taken us 30 years to get to the position that we have in terms of profile, competitive, and the revenue streams that we have. I would not be too concerned at the moment, but obviously Saudi Arabian clubs have as much right to purchase players as any other league does. In the end, the Premier League is a £6 billion a year operation in terms of revenue, and that money is spent reinvested into the pitch. All good competitions have to have revenue streams to back them up. Report by Martin Macmillan. Evening Times Sport, July 26. Carter Vickers injury latest. Report by Ewan Payton. Cameron Carter-Vickers is set to hand Celtic a major injury boost heading into the new season. The Scottish Sun reports that the American international is close to a return to full training. The powerful defender has been out of action since undergoing knee surgery in May this year, but he is poised to step up his comeback and will reportedly be ready to feature in the early weeks of the season for Brendan Rodgers. The vice-captain stayed in Glasgow as the whole of the rest of his teammates jetted off to Japan for the club's pre-season tour. He trained with the B team, but will now rejoin the first team upon the return home to Scotland. Evening Times Sport, July 26. Rangers' third-round Champions League home leg date revealed. Report by Ewan Payton. The date for Rangers' Champions League third qualifying round home leg tie has been confirmed, with Michael Beale's side facing either Genk or Servette in a two-legged affair. The first leg will be played at Ibrox, and UEFA have revealed that the tie will take place on Wednesday, August 9. The match will start at 7:45 p.m. Rangers will look to gain home advantage against either the Belgian or Swiss League runners-up as they attempt to get a step closer to the Champions League group stages. The return leg will be played away from home on Tuesday, August 15. Should Rangers progress to the play-off round, they will face one of Marseille, PSV Eindhoven, Sturm Graz, Dnipro 1 or Panathinaikos for a place in the Champions League proper. The draw for the final qualification round takes place on Monday, August 7. Rangers defeated Union Saint-Gilloise and PSV Eindhoven last summer under Giovanni van Bronckhorst to return to the Champions League after a 12-year hiatus from UEFA's top club competition. Servette and Genk served up a 1-1 draw last night, meaning their second-leg tie next week hangs in the balance. Toulouse Arocodaire fired Genk into an early lead in Switzerland after just 21 minutes. However, experienced defender Steve Rollier equalised with 10 minutes left on the clock to ensure that the game remains tight heading into next week's decider. Report by Ewan Payton. Evening Times Sport, July 26. Rugby. Kenny Murray job assured despite catastrophic Scotland defeat. Report by David Barnes. Jim Mallender, Scottish Rugby's performance director, has assured Kenny Murray that his job is safe, despite the coach overseeing the catastrophic defeat for Scotland under-20s against Uruguay at the Junior World Trophy in Kenya. He claimed, "Kenny is doing a good job. He's getting that team better. He's put in some great preparation. The squad are improving, but if you look at the game time of these youngsters, they've not played enough. I've been through it this week with our statistician, and only about 5 or 6 are playing nearly every week. How can we have one of our starting players who has only played 80 minutes of rugby in the last 3 or 4 months? No wonder we're getting 12 injuries. We're not playing the quality and quantity of rugby, not exposing them to the right levels. I'm confident in Kenny and the coaching team. We need to support him and make these changes." Mallender may have a point about this lack of exposure for the nation's best players, but he struggled to explain why, 4 years after his arrival in the job, this issue is only just being addressed, especially as Scottish Rugby own both the nation's pro teams and pump significant sums of money into the 6 Super Series sides, which are meant to provide a bridge between the traditional club game and the pro tier. He shrugged. There are probably half a dozen who are playing regular Super 6 because those coaches want to improve players, but they also want to win. This is why we are taking the bull by the horns and putting our under-20 team in the competition. That is something which is going to happen as soon as we get back from this tournament. I'm not going to get away from this being a bit disappointed. We need to improve. We've seen that over the last couple of years. We've not been good enough. We've got to start afresh. We can't keep doing the same things, or we will just get worse. I feel so sorry for Kenny because he's such a good coach. We've had about 12 of our best players unavailable to play in this tournament because of injuries. We're not using this as an excuse because we know where we are at. We are short of quality players. We need to give them better game time and improve their physicality. We are in a low position, really disappointed. I've just been in that dinner hall and there was silence from those lads. They didn't play particularly well. Some of our decision-making was really, really bad, and we can get a lot better. That's a poor performance. We understand where we are at, and that's why we are making these changes to the structure, not changes to the coaches. Report by David Barnes. Evening Times Sport, July 26. Scotland 26, Uruguay 37. Scots plumb new depths in disastrous defeat. Report by David Barnes. There has been many a low day in the long and turbulent history of Scottish rugby, but few will have hit the depths of this one. A timid defeat for Kenny Murray's age-grade side in the final pool match of their Junior World Trophy campaign against an unheralded but hungry and well-organised Uruguayan outfit means that there will be no immediate return back into the Junior World Championship next summer. Instead, next year's under-20s cohort will have to go through the ignominy of trying to qualify once again for the trophy competition and hope that this time they can go on to win the tournament and thereby secure promotion back to the top table. The young Scots came into this tournament with a record of just one win in their last 19 matches against Six Nations opposition and Georgia, and they suffered a heart-wrenching 82-7 home defeat to Ireland in the most recent championship. All of which is a major concern, because this level has historically been a valuable stepping stone for the nation's young talent progressing into pro ranks, but that process has all but dried up in the last 2 or 3 years. Said head coach Murray afterwards, "We are really disappointed. It's a game we prepared well for and believe we should have won, but we didn't play well enough. It's as simple as that. Playing against the wind, we did not manage our exits well enough in the first half hour in particular, which allowed them to get purchase in the game. We made a couple of costly errors. One defensive one in particular let them in for a try, and in the second half our game management was not where it needed to be." Uruguay took the lead with just 4 minutes on the clock, when crisp handling sent Juan Gonzalez clear on the right, who made good ground before feeding back inside for Juan Carlos Canessa to provide the link, which sent Pedro Brum over for the opening score. Canessa added the conversion, then kicked a breakdown penalty to make it 10-0 with quarter of the game played. Even after Eddie Erskine muscled over in 23 minutes, the Scots could not settle into any sort of rhythm, continuing to give away cheap penalties and losing their try-scorer to the sin bin just a minute after the restart, as punishment for dangerously taking out Uruguayan number 8 Manuel Rosmarino in the air at a line-out. The South Americans took immediate advantage of their extra forward by kicking to the corner and then driving their maul over the line, with hooker Maximo Lamalas finishing off the try and Canessa adding the conversion. Icaro Amarillo fired home a 50-yard drop goal which stretched the Uruguayan lead to 13 points, but Scotland had the last word of the first half when Cambone hit Dan King late and the penalty was kicked to the corner, setting up a line-out maul from which Tate scored his third try in as many matches at this tournament. Afshar sent the conversion over via deflection off the right post. Despite losing hooker Lamalas to the sin bin for a shoulder charge on Tate just before the break, Uruguay surged out of the changing rooms at the start of the second period to claim their third try when Juan Gonzalez rode 3 tackles on his way to the line. Scotland scored again through another line-out maul try for Tate, but Canessa kept Uruguay firmly in the driving seat with a scrum penalty. The one area which was working for the Scots was their line-out maul, and that earned them a man advantage for 10 minutes when replacement prop Francisco Garcia was sent to the bin for illegally collapsing just before Erskine bashed over for his second close-range try of the afternoon. But Uruguay kept their cool and scored again, when Pedro Hoblog fed Storas with a cute backhanded pass and the centre shrugged off Tate's tackle on his way to the line. Report by David Barnes. Evening Times Sport, July 26. A wonderful man. Tributes paid at Craig Brown funeral. Report by Aidan Smith. Friends and colleagues of Craig Brown said their goodbyes to the late former Scotland manager in Ayr yesterday. Brown died at the age of 82 in hospital last month after a short illness, and the remembrance service took place at Ayr Racecourse following a private family funeral. Brown was the last man to lead Scotland to a World Cup finals, taking charge of the team in France 25 years ago. Some of the Scotland players who played under him, such as Jim Leighton, Tom Boyd, Gary McAllister, Murdo MacLeod, Tosh McKinlay, John Collins, Colin Henry and Darren Jackson, were in attendance along with former national team managers Andy Roxburgh and Alex McLeish, SPFL Chief Executive Neil Doncaster and Chairman Murdo McLennan were joined by SFA Chief Executive Ian Maxwell. Derek McInnes of Kilmarnock, Aberdeen's Barry Robson and Tony Docherty of Dundee were among current Scottish club managers present, along with West Ham manager David Moyes. Other well-known figures from Scottish football, such as Willie Miller, James McFadden, Archie Knox, Jim Jefferies, Billy Stark, Jimmy Bowen, Jockey Scott and Dick Campbell attended the service. Brown is survived by his two sons, Hugh and John, and his daughter Val, all of whom spoke eloquently about their father. In an emotional eulogy, Val catalogued her father's life and football career and his love of quoting statistics. She also recalled his brief foray into the world of pop music when he was a player at Dundee in the 1960s. With tongue-in-cheek, she said, "Strangely, Dad was very proud of having a hit single as one of 5 Dundee Football Club players who formed the famous pop group Hammy and the Hamsters. With their hits, She Was Mine and My Dream Came True, I am told they were the best boy band this side of Broughty Ferry." Son Hugh thanked the audience for the incredible love and support. "It is overwhelming and heartwarming," before he spoke with some humour about his father's tough love. He said, "I think it would be fair to say we endured old-school discipline at home, so in all honesty we were absolutely delighted when he decanted to his beloved Largs for the summer for the SFA coaching courses, leaving Mum and the 3 of us to get on with it. We didn't have fancy holidays as kids, but we had good manners drummed into us. John has forgotten some. Good grammar was very important, but we had the best sports equipment. He was a football fanatic who could not cook, wash, iron, or do anything domestically, and he struggled to relax really until later in life. But a wonderful man. We were all so proud of him." So son John spoke about his father's love of entertaining an audience. Dad did not let the truth stand in the way of a good story. He would far rather tell a beautiful lie than a boring truth. Brown, a former school teacher, also led Scotland to the European Championship in 1996 and was involved in a coaching capacity at 3 other major tournaments. The Glasgow-born former Rangers and Dundee player managed Clyde before his international coaching career, which also included leading Scotland under-16s to a World Cup final and the under-21s to a European semi-final. Brown was manager of Scotland from 1993 until 2001. He later managed Preston, Motherwell and Aberdeen before becoming a director at Pittodrie. Report by Aidan Smith. Evening Times Sport, July 27. Feyenoord making mistake in Danilo to Rangers transfer deal. Report by Mark Walker. Dutch World Cup legend Wim van Hanegem reckons his old club Feyenoord have made a big mistake in selling Danilo to Rangers. The Brazilian winger is reportedly on the verge of a £6 million deal with the Ibrox side, although manager Michael Beale has insisted the fee will be lower. Danilo was an important player with the Rotterdam club at the start of last season and won the Young Player of the Month award in October, although he was used more off the bench as the season progressed and Feyenoord romped to the Eredivisie title. However, Van Hanegem, who won 3 titles, a European Cup and a UEFA Cup with Feyenoord as a player, and 1 title as manager, and was also a World Cup runner-up with the Netherlands, reckons his move will disrupt team morale at his former club. He said, "Personally, I would not have accepted the offer from Rangers. It's not because he is a great player, it's because he has such a great relationship with his Brazilian colleague, Igor Pixel. The bond between the two of them is special, they interact so well. I know Pixel is quite upset his mate has decided to leave the club. When one leaves, the other feels terrible. Danilo was a good influence and a good second striker at the club. I wouldn't have let him go anywhere." Report by Mark Walker. Evening Times Sport, July 27. Ryan Kent opens up on debut. Report by Mark Walker. Ryan Kent admitted he struggled to play in 35 degrees heat, despite making a sensational start to his Fenerbahce career by scoring on his debut. The former Rangers winger introduced himself perfectly to the home crowd when he netted after just 14 minutes as the Istanbul side swept away Moldovan minnows Zimbru Chisinau in an eye-catching 5-0 romp in the Europa Conference League. It was the ideal introduction for Kent, although he reckoned it was difficult to play in such extreme temperatures, even though the kick-off was 9 p.m. local time. He said it was very difficult to play under these conditions, but they were the same for both teams. The important thing is to dominate possession on the pitch, because then you make the opposition run and chase the ball, and that's very hard. So we tried to make the game as easy as possible for ourselves, and we succeeded. It was a positive performance for us, and we started the game very quickly. Perhaps we had a rest after we scored the second goal, but we were still dominant. We managed to show our style of play even in the heat, and remember, we are still developing as a team. The atmosphere was incredible, and I hope to experience it more often. Kent's debut goal was all the more remarkable, since he only managed to score 2 goals for Rangers since the start of last October. Report by Mark Walker. Evening Times Sport, July 27. Rangers Champions League qualifier, live on free-to-air TV. Report by David Irvin. Rangers Champions League third qualifying round tie first leg will be shown live on free-to-air TV. BBC Sports Scene have announced it will give live coverage of the clash against Servette or Genk at Ibrox next month. Rangers await the winners of the second qualifying round match for the 2-leg tie in August. Rangers will host the winners first at Ibrox on August 9, and BBC will broadcast the match live on free-to-air TV. Viewers can watch the match on the BBC Scotland channel, through iPlayer, or on the BBC Sports Scotland website. A BBC statement confirmed Sports Scene cameras will be at Ibrox for full live coverage of the first leg of Rangers Euro tie. The home leg of the tie is in the Champions League third qualifying round, which kicks off at 7:45 p.m. on Wednesday 9 August. There will also be clips and updates on social media channels and live coverage on BBC Radio Scotland. It will be a big night at Ibrox as Rangers look to gain an advantage in the first match of their campaign to secure a Champions League spot. Rangers successfully negotiated a path to the group stage last year and will be looking for a positive result at Ibrox. Evening Times Sport, July 27. Sakala rejects big money Rangers transfer exit. Report by David Irvin. Fashion Sakala has reportedly turned down a lucrative transfer to the Saudi Pro League to stay at Rangers. It is claimed that Saudi side Al Fayha had interest in the Zambian forward, but could not persuade the 26-year-old to depart Ibrox. The Daily Mail reports that Al Fayha did make a move to land Sakala, but the forward was not interested in an Ibrox exit, despite the possibility of a money-spinning move to the Middle East. However, Michael Beale has revealed there have been transfer inquiries for 3 or 4 Rangers players this summer, as he conceded outgoing could happen, and he revealed negotiations over a transfer exit for Scott Wright to Turkey remains ongoing. The Ibrox boss explained, "Scott went out to Turkey last week, as everyone knows. I think he was caught at the airport. You can't go anywhere these days without the cameras, and he was caught. Scott was honest in his interview. We accepted the bid. He went over to meet the team and meet the coach, and negotiations are on in the background. There is no point in risking Scott in these fixtures while that is up in the air. There have been inquiries about 3 or 4 players. Next week we have to name a European squad for the first 2 games, so naturally that will mean that some players will not be able to make that. That's the nature of the game. Every season 1 or 2 miss out. As we get closer to it, and I am not using everybody, you will find that 1 or 2 will probably want to have guarantees of playing, and I am probably not willing to give that. So they will have to hedge their bets one way or another. On transfer incomings, with Rangers set to land at Danilo and Jose Cifuentes, Beale added, "I would just say you need to be patient a bit till over the weekend. I would not listen to the size of fee or salary. There are a lot of things going around, and I'll tell you it's nowhere near the size of both. If you stay patient, I'm hoping there's some good news at the start of next week for everybody." Report by David Irvin. Evening Times Sport, July 27. Liam Bryce comments on what Mbappe and Saudi Arabia means for football's established order. I must admit to being a bit too blasé about the Saudi Pro League. Back in those early days of just a few weeks ago, when they were only making bids for the odd aging superstar and mid-range Premier League player, it felt much easier to reserve judgment on whether this was the beginning of a new footballing era or a rerun of the Chinese Super League's mid-2000s experimentation with a similarly lavish spending policy. There were, after all, some quite obvious parallels. A league around which there was previously very little fanfare, until clubs started throwing exorbitant sums of money at players largely considered to have passed their best. You will remember Carlos Tevez suddenly becoming one of the world's best paid players at the tender age of 33, followed by the likes of Hulk, Oscar, Yannick Carrasco, and Jackson Martinez, all with considerable European football pedigree. The tipping point may just have been the fact that paying Ezequiel Lavezzi £798,000 a week is apparently not the most sustainable way to grow a football brand. The CSL became the monster that ate itself, differing from the Saudi Pro League in that big spending clubs were privately owned by property developers at the encouragement of the Chinese government. These companies were already feeling the financial strain before COVID-19 turned the world upside down. Some clubs fell from their free spending frenzy all the way to relegation. Others went out of business entirely. The Saudi clubs riding roughshod over this summer's transfer window, by contrast, have been fueled by seemingly unlimited state wealth, the boldest offensive yet by the country's Public Investment Fund and its efforts to exert influence over world sport. Whether the Pro League achieves its aim of becoming one of the world's top 5 domestic divisions remains to be seen. There is no doubt they have snared some big names, probably already more than the CSL ever did, and there will certainly be more to follow. You may have heard about the €300 million bid from Al Hilal for Paris Saint-Germain's Kylian Mbappe, the one that would shatter the world transfer record, and if successful, potentially become a watershed moment for the game. That it would likely only be for a single season is seemingly of no hindrance to Saudi ambitions. Mbappe is believed to have verbally agreed to join Real Madrid next summer. It's about what this signing would represent over anything that actually happens on the pitch. The biggest problem facing the Pro League was how to position itself as something other than a luxury retirement home where the residents can gorge on tax-free millions to further grow their already bloated bank accounts. They clearly feel Mbappe is a solution. It's a power play designed to alter perceptions. If one of the world's most high-profile stars chooses the Pro League, you can bet every penny of that €300 million there will be countless other up-and-comers, all having the same, well, if it's good enough for Kylian, thought simultaneously. Yes, there's something more than a little gross about players who already have more money than a single person could spend in a lifetime, jumping at this cash, some of them at the expense of what they proclaimed to be closely held principles. Looking at you, Jordan Henderson. But despite all that, the capture of a genuine superstar still to hit the peak of his powers, to put him in the shade, would almost definitely wind up Cristiano Ronaldo. So who am I to say whether it be a bad thing or not? In all seriousness, it feels like the easy option to drone on about greedy footballers following the money, and they will probably take the brunt of the flag. But you wonder if, at any stage, may football's power brokers pause to reflect on their role in the game reaching this point. One where one of its most high-profile talents could essentially find himself being used as a geopolitical pawn in the Saudi state's pursuit of soft power, influence, and the assuaging of scrutiny over its human rights record. Given how anyone who dared point out that Liverpool captain Henderson, opting to play in a country where homosexuality is a criminal offence, is rather at odds with his long-standing vocal support of LGBT rights, was shouted down. It seems that strategy is somewhat working. That football has been left open to the relentless wielding of state wealth is starting to feel like the inevitable consequence of a complete lack of serious financial regulation. Nobody in power was really bothered when monetary imbalance created a scenario where Bournemouth became a more fiscally attractive proposition than some of Europe's most historic clubs, when those same clubs were marginalised in continental competition to preserve and progress the interests of a select few, when an Abu Dhabi-backed Manchester City spent their way to the top of the tree because it helps cement the Premier League's status as the most lucrative competition on the planet. The 115 charges of alleged financial impropriety over a 9-year period, now levelled at a club still celebrating a European and domestic treble, suggests those running the game may just have gone wrong somewhere down the line. We are now seeing what happens when elite football's coveting of money above all else runs headfirst into the realisation that there's always a bigger fish. As queasy as the Saudi revolution should make us feel, it is difficult to take seriously the protestations from certain quarters that it's ruining the game, as though that has not been happening for a long time already. As City hoisted the Champions League trophy high back in June, it was gleefully heralded live on BT Sport as the conclusion to the greatest story in football. Something about reaping and sowing springs to mind. Even if Al Hilal do not succeed in signing Mbappe, it feels increasingly inevitable a Saudi club will prevail in a similar gambit before long. That would likely be enough to turn the Pro League into a serious consideration for players who would previously not have considered it a progressive career move. And for that, football's established powers would only have themselves to blame, says Liam Bryce. Evening Times Sport, July 27. Workers' Union and Fans Football Team link up in new sponsorship deal. Report by Morgan Carmichael. A Scottish Workers' Union and Fans Football Team have linked up for a new sponsorship deal. The Communications Workers' Union, CWU, have announced they will sponsor the Partick Thistle fan group, Jags for Good, football team. Jags for Good, which is a fan collective that mobilises supporters for social justice causes, has an impressive track record of raising money for local food banks and helping others with energy bills. With the CWU Scotland's support for fans supporting food banks across Scotland, the sponsorship has been branded as a natural continuation. Speaking on the new venture, CWU Scotland's Secretary Craig Anderson said, "We are delighted to sponsor the Jags for Good football team. Their values of helping and supporting people in the wider community very much align with our own. We recognise that mutual aid at the best of times, let alone within the current cost of incomes and living crisis, is vital. The very core of trade unions is built on solidarity, collectivism, and mutual aid, and we know that these are the principles of Jags for Good. We look forward to working with them to help support people in Glasgow and beyond, and look forward to a long and fruitful partnership with them." Neil Cowan from Jags for Good said, "Jags for Good are all about mobilising Partick Thistle fans in the name of social justice causes in the local community and setting up our own football team in a way of bringing Jags fans together with others in the local community, while also, hopefully, winning a few games of football. Having CWU Scotland region come on board with that, by sponsoring our home kits, is fantastic. We will be proud to have their name on our strips when we play, and we hope we can reward their support and solidarity with a few wins. Report by Morgan Carmichael. Evening Times Sport, July 28. British cycling set to debut Olympic bike. Report by Times Sport. Great Britain's track cyclists will debut the radical new bike they hope to ride to Olympic glory in Paris at next week's UCI Cycling World Championships in Glasgow. From the Beijing Olympics onwards, British cycling has invested heavily in technological development, with the early years of success powered by the famed Research and Development Department, once known as the Secret Squirrel Club, then Room X. The latest machine, which continues the collaboration between Lotus, Hope and Renishaw, builds on the ideas behind the HBT bike, which helped Britain once again top the medal tables in the velodrome at the Tokyo Games. With unique handlebars and forks, the bike is seen as another big step forward in terms of aerodynamic efficiency. World governing body, the UCI, requires nations to register and race their Olympic kit before the Games, and in total, Great Britain will be using 64 different bits of kit and equipment destined for Paris 2024 at the World Championships, which begin in Glasgow on August 3. British Cycling Performance Director Stephen Park said, "To continue to win medals year on year at the highest level, we need everything to come together at exactly the right time. The best riders, the best equipment, the best technology. We have been working with Lotus, Hope and Renishaw for the past 2 Olympic cycles, as we believe that together we have the world-leading expertise needed to deliver what we believe to be the fastest track bike in the world." Report by Times Sport. Evening Times Sport, July 28. Celtic's Japanese stars face tense World Cup clash in North Korea. Report by Mark Walker. Celtic's battalion of Japanese players will face a tense World Cup showdown in North Korea later this season, after being paired together just a day after their government warned about the threat posed to their national security. The Hoops have 5 Japanese players in the squad: Kyoko Furuhashi, Ryo Hatate, Daisen Maeda, Tomoki Iwata, and Yuki Kobayashi, with Yoshiki Ediguchi out on loan in his homeland. All have been capped apart from Kobayashi. FIFA completed their World Cup draw this week for the Asian qualifiers, and Japan faced the secretive state of North Korea, who pulled out of the last qualifiers but have now returned, as well as Syria and Myanmar or Macau. But the draw has caused concern in Japan after their government insisted North Korea are now a bigger military threat to its national security than ever before. They stated, "North Korea's military activities pose an even more grave and imminent threat to Japan's national security than ever. It is believed that North Korea has the ability to attack Japan with nuclear weapons fitted to ballistic missiles." And Japan boss Hajime Moriyasu said after the draw, "The road to the World Cup is never easy, and this is a particularly challenging one. For the players, the accumulation of fatigue due to long-distance travel during the season, the tight schedule without enough time to adjust, and the opponents with strong motivation make it difficult to overcome these challenges, but I have confidence in them to do that. Celtic's South Korean stars face a possible exhausting 7,500 miles trip from Glasgow to the Pacific outpost of Guam if they beat Singapore in a play-off, after they were paired together with them in the drop, along with games against China and Thailand. And Scottish football's host of Socceroos could play in the Maldives if they beat Bangladesh in a play-off along with Palestine and Lebanon. Report by Mark Walker. Evening Times Sport, July 28. Chris Jack says, Michael Beale's defensive decisions this summer will shape Rangers' title bid. Goals win games, but it is clean sheets that can win titles. Having addressed one issue this summer, Michael Beale must now focus on the other in what remains of the transfer window. The additions made from middle to front have given Rangers fresh blood and a new impetus. The sums spent to secure Sam Lammers and Cyril Dessers are significant, and further cash will be invested to complete the signing of Danilo from Feyenoord in a deal that will be worth more than £5 million. Jose Cifuentes, the Los Angeles Football Club midfielder, will also arrive for a fee, while Abdallah Sima has been brought in on loan from Brighton and Hove Albion. The other midfield addition, Kieran Dowell, was a free transfer from Norwich City. The deals for Danilo and Cifuentes will take the number of new arrivals to 9 at Ibrox. The one after that could prove to be the most significant if Beale makes signing 10 his first pick at centre-back. Supporters will hope that the guile and goals that were so noticeably missing from the side last season have been added as a result of the recruitment drive in midfield and attack. The problems at the back cannot be overlooked, though. The capture of Jack Butland looks a shrewd move as he succeeds Alan McGregor between the sticks. On the right, Captain James Tavernier is all but assured of his place, although he will face greater competition now that Dujon Sterling has been brought on board from Chelsea. One of the remaining 3 spots will be filled by Connor Goldson when he returns from injury, while it would be a surprise if Ridvan Yilmaz is not given the nod to start at left-back. Another shaky showing in the defeat to Olympiacos on Wednesday evening did little for Borna Barisic standing with the Ibrox crowd. Yet it is the other centre-back berth that is the most pressing concern right now. If Beale is going to go back into the market, that is the area of the side that requires attention. Interest in Jonathan Panzo, the Nottingham Forest defender, and Arsenal's Austin Trusty has been long-standing. When Liam King was injured during the trip to Germany earlier this month, a quick-fire deal for Liam Balogun made sense and ticked the right boxes. The veteran is not the long-term solution to a long-standing problem. He does, however, know what it takes to win titles, and the man that was an integral part of the 55 win has spoken about the relationship with Goldson and the mentality required at a club that will demand silverware this term. Rangers broke historic clean sheet records and conceded just 13 goals on their way to that triumph, as Beale and Steven Gerrard masterminded an invincible Premiership campaign. Even coming close to replicating that feat will be quite the task, but it shows what is possible when the personnel and the approach are right. The team with the best defensive record has been crowned as champions in every season since the top flight was rebranded as the Premiership. The only anomaly was the COVID campaign, as Celtic conceded 19 times from their 30 matches, compared to the 19 Rangers lost in 29 outings, and the title was awarded on a points-per-game basis. Since that record-breaking season in 2021-22, Rangers have lost 31 goals and 37 goals respectively, as they failed to defend their crown or win it back. Their tally last term was the highest since their first 2 years back in the division, as they conceded 44 and 50 times in those barren campaigns. There is, then, plenty of room for improvement. The work that Beale does on the training ground will account for a large percentage of any progress that is made, yet there is a feeling that it will require further personnel changes for Rangers to take the defensive strides required. As it stands, John Souttar looks to be the most accomplished partner for Goldson, and the Scotland defender is a fine fit in terms of style and substance. There are, however, questions to be answered over how robust he can be over the course of a campaign. When it comes to Ben Davies, the queries are different. Many remain unconvinced by the Englishman, and the arrival of another defender this summer would surely spell the end of his Ibrox career after a solitary, unspectacular season. Rangers should be able to recoup most of the £4 million that was paid to Liverpool last summer, and Davies finds himself with doubters to win over. With each passive performance that is produced, the narrative that the money could be better spent strengthens. Beale then has decisions to make. If he sticks, he must raise the individual and collective levels. If he twists, he must find the right fit to complement and enhance. The rebuild has largely focused on the top end of the park. Now he must lay the foundations for his side and for Rangers' title bid, says Chris Jack. Evening Times Sport, July 28. Euro 2028. Way cleared for UK and Ireland to host. Report by Gabriel Mackay. The UK and Ireland look set to host the European Championships in 2028, as it's reported Italy and Turkey will jointly stage the 2032 tournament. Scotland, England, Wales, Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland are bidding to host Euro 2028, with matches to be played at Hampden Park in Glasgow. The National Stadium previously hosted matches at the 2020 edition, which was played at various locations across the continent. The only other bid to host in 2028 comes from Turkey, who have stated their intention to host either that edition or the following one 4 years later. For the latter, they were bidding against Italy, but Italian news agency ANSA now reports that the two nations have decided on a joint bid. Gabriele Gravina, the head of the Italian FA, met with his counterpart from the Turkish Federation in Rome this week. It was decided they would make a joint bid, and as they are the only two bidders, it now appears inevitable that Italy and Turkey will be awarded the tournament at a meeting of UEFA's Executive Committee on October 10. That would then leave the UK and Ireland bid for 2028 unopposed. Report by Gabriel Mackay. Evening Times Sport, July 28. Scottish football fans given warning ahead of UCI World Championships. Report by Gabriel Mackay. Football fans have been warned to plan ahead for the opening 2 weeks of the SPFL and SWPL seasons, with the UCI Cycling World Championships coming to Glasgow. The event brings together various disciplines of cycling into one event for the first time and will take place in the city and beyond from August 3. Hundreds of thousands of spectators are expected to attend, and with the SPFL season kicking off on August 5, public transport is expected to be busier than usual. On August 5, Premiership champions Celtic kick off their title defence at home to Ross County, while Rangers host Livingston the following weekend. On Sunday, August 6, Hibs host St Mirren at Easter Road, with the men's road race beginning in the capital and finishing in Glasgow. Partick Thistle versus Wraith Rovers on August 5 and Queen's Park versus Arbroath on August 12 are also games in the Cinch Championship that could be impacted. The Scottish Power Women's Premier League also kicks off on August 13, the final day of the cycling event, and champions Glasgow City host Hibs that day. Callum Beattie, the SPFL's Chief Operating Officer, said, "I am sure football fans across the country are very much looking forward to cheering on their team when the new league season kicks off on August 5. Public transport will be particularly busy in Glasgow city centre on our two opening weekends because of the 2023 UCI Cycling World Championships, and we would simply encourage anyone attending an SPFL or SWPL match to allow extra time for travel so that they can make their game in plenty of time." Valerie Davidson, SPT's Chief Executive, said, "With football and the UCI Cycling World Championships occurring at the same time, the public transport network will be very busy. We want everyone, staff and customers, to remain safe and get to their destination on time. That does mean planning ahead, and I'm sure those travelling to games will factor in the additional time needed." British Transport Police Chief Superintendent in Scotland, Gillian Murray, said, "During this period, fans attending any of the Scottish Professional Football League games will notice a lot more police officers on trains and at stations. This is because we expect tens of thousands of more rail passengers due to the Cycling World Championships. We will have specially trained uniform and plainclothed officers positioned strategically to make sure football fans and cycling fans alike move safely and efficiently across the Nail network." Report by Gabriel Mackay. Evening Times Sport, July 31. Beale provides Rangers updates. Report by Chris Jack. Michael Beale admits it is only natural that there is noise around several of his Ibrox fringe men this summer as he seeks to trim his Rangers squad in the coming weeks. The Englishman completed his 9th signing of the window on Friday as Danilo put pen to paper on a long-term deal following a £5 million switch from Feyenoord. Rangers have also spent big to secure the services of Sam Lammers and Cyril Dessers, while the likes of Jack Butland and Kieran Dowell have arrived on free transfers from across the border. Beale will have to reduce the size of his first-team pool before the close of business, but insists there is nothing imminent in terms of Fashion Sakala's future, amid speculation that he is free to leave the club this summer. Beale said, "There's nothing on Fashion at the moment. There's a bit of noise around a few of the players, and that's natural because of how many we've brought in. As soon as there's something to say on that, we will. When you bring 9 players in and 2 in January, that's 11 into the squad. Quite a few have left, around 8 to 10, but I need to have time now to bring this team together. Is it going to be perfect straight away? No. You can see there's going to be teething problems. But you can see we've got good players, and as long as they all get in line and in tune quickly, we will be okay. Naturally, with that process, one or two will be a little bit uneasy. One or two might bite down on the gum shield and fight. The window shuts on September 1, but we've got 8 or 9 games before then. So it will be a long month. I'm sure one or two will leave and maybe one or two more will arrive. Rangers released several stalwarts of the squad at the end of last season, as Alan McGregor retired, and Scott Arfield, Ryan Kent and Alfredo Morelos were allowed to move on. And another hero of the 55 campaign is also heading for the exit as the Ibrox board seek to recoup around £5 million for midfielder Glenn Kamara this summer. Beale said, "There is no update on Glenn. He was obviously given an extended break at the end of the season due to internationals. Then he's had a sickness problem, which has run on. He's training in isolation at the moment, not with the group, trying to get himself up to speed. There's a lot in the background with Glenn as well, with different inquiries and him talking to different people. So it's best that he's to the side of the group. I've got no issues with him on a personal level. It's a conversation we had a good few months ago." Rangers rounded off their pre-season schedule with a 2-2 draw in Hoffenheim on Saturday, and now have their focus fixed on the start of the new Premiership campaign. A tricky trip to Kilmarnock is first on the agenda for the title hopefuls, and Beale is confident his new-look side can go on to enjoy success together over the course of the first full season in charge. And he said, "The league's not going to be over after Game 1. We'll play each game that's in front of us. This is a new team. It's what we wanted. It's what the fans wanted. There's a lot of excitement. Now we need to support it, fuel it. We need to get it fit and strong and together. The fans need to get behind us. We'll take a game at a time and see where it takes us. This month, we'll play in 3 competitions. There's a group of players here who won a lot of football matches from Christmas onwards when I came in, so I expect them to go and win some more this month." Report by Chris Jack. Evening Times Sport, July 31. Rodgers hungrier than ever for success at Celtic. Report by Ewan Payton. Some question Brendan Rodgers' desire to get back into football following his sacking from Leicester City. Earlier this year, the Irishman made no secret of the fact he wanted a break from the game after a tumultuous time at the King Power, which ultimately saw the club relegated from the Premier League. Dermot Desmond had other ideas though. The Celtic owner managed to convince the former Liverpool boss to return to Parkhead for a second stint as manager this summer. He took over from Ange Postecoglou and will return to the dugout for the club's first Premiership fixture this weekend at home to Ross County. And Rodgers insists his appetite for success has never been stronger. He delivered unrelenting success during his first spell in charge, and he is excited to try to emulate that second time around. He said, "I've come back with more experience, more games under my belt, but equally more hunger. There is probably a greater appreciation, that's for sure. In terms of football, and having gone away for 4.5 years, and working in the most competitive league in the world, the English Premier League with top players and top managers, so you will only develop and learn from that. I think I'll enjoy it even more now that I am back. The first time I was here, and I loved my time here, it was great. but having gone away for 4.5 years, I had a lot to think about before coming back. It wasn't just about coming back to Celtic. There were lots of things off the field and on the pitch. I said to myself that I was going to enjoy every single moment of being back here again, both in terms of life and in football, and I intend to do that. Report by Ewan Payton. Evening Times Sport, July 31. UCI World Championships, everything you need to know. Report by Gabriel Mackay. Scotland is gearing up to host a major summer sporting event as the UCI World Championships come to Glasgow and beyond. Some of the biggest stars in cycling will compete across the country from August 3 to 13, with a predicted economic boost of £67 million just in Glasgow, the main host, alone. World champions past and reigning Grand Tour winners and rising stars will all be racing on the road, the track and the mountains over the course of 10 days. Here's everything you need to know before the action gets underway. What are the UCI World Championships? For the first time, the sport's governing body is bringing the various disciplines it oversees into one event to be held in Scotland. Male and female athletes will compete in road, track, BMX, mountain and para-cycling. The winner in each category earns the right to wear the rainbow jersey for the next 12 months. In total, there will be 13 disciplines, rising to 27 in France in 4 years' time, when cyclocross and gravel will be included. Who will be there? Some of the biggest names in road cycling will take part in the men's road race. Slovakia's Peter Sagan, a 3 times back-to-back winner of the rainbow jersey in the past, will compete in the event for the last time, while last year's Vuelta a España winner and reigning world champion Remco Evenepoel is expected to defend his crown. Julian Alaphilippe, who won in both 2020 and 2021, will be competing, as will Portugal's João Almeida, after his podium finish at the Giro d'Italia earlier this year. Tour de France runner-up Tadej Pogačar is still considering whether to race. The men's time trial will feature former Tour de France winner Geraint Thomas, as well as 2-time winner Filippo Ganna, widely considered the best time trialist in the world, looking to take the jersey once again. The Italian will also compete on the track, as he looks to defend his individual pursuit jersey, having won the event a record 5 times. Lizzie Deignan, winner of the women's race in 2023, will return to the World Championships for the road race, with Lizzie Holden to compete in both the road race and time trial. At the Chris Hoy Velodrome, Dutchman Harry Lavreysen is looking to win his 5th time trial on the spin, while Paisley's Jack Carlin will compete in the sprint. Germany's Leah Friedrich looks the woman to beat in the women's sprint, as she bids to regain her sprint world title from Matilda Gross. What lingo do I need to know? When it comes to road cycling, many of the terms used are borrowed from European languages. The peloton is the name for the mass group of riders, which is likely to be reduced to a gruppetto as the riders tackle the climb on the Crow Road. A domestique is a rider who works on behalf of his or her team leader, the person on their squad with the most chance of winning. A rouleur is a specialist over long distances who will look to win the road race in a breakaway. BMX is a veritable cornucopia of jargon, including berm, the embankment on the outside of a track, flare, a backflip and 180-degree rotation in the same motion, and X-up, when the handlebars are turned a full 180 degrees. Where will the events take place? The track cycling and paracycling will be held at the Chris Hoy Velodrome in Glasgow's East End, with the indoor cycling at the Commonwealth Arena. BMX events will be held at Glasgow Green and the Glasgow BMX Centre, while mountain bike events will be in Glentross Forest in the Borders and the Nevis Range near Fort William. The men and women's elite road races will both end in George Square, with the start line in Edinburgh and Loch Lomond respectively. Road time trial events will end with a climb to Stirling Castle. Will there be road closures? There will be road closures in Glasgow throughout the championships, as well as in other areas when races pass through. In Glasgow, road closures will come into effect from 1 minute past midnight on Friday, August 4, until 23:59 on Tuesday, August 8. Closures will then come into effect once more from 00:01 on Saturday, August 12, until 23:59 on Sunday, August 13. The men's elite road race travels from Edinburgh to Glasgow, taking in locations such as the Queensferry Crossing and Crow Road, and there will be closures along the route. The women's race goes from Loch Lomond to the finish in George Square and takes in Stirling and Eastern Bartonshire. Both the men's and women's elite time trials finish at Stirling Castle. Will there be parking restrictions in place? Though the UCI Cycling World Championships don't start until August 3, people have been warned to expect parking restrictions from today, Monday, July 31. These restrictions will come into force along the road race route, with work building the courses and deploying barriers from Tuesday, August 1. The majority of the restrictions will stay in place until the championships close on August 13. Report by Gabriel Mackay.
That concludes this week's edition of the Glasgow Times Sports Podcast. Please remember to subscribe to our channels, @Q&Review, and to tell your friends about our service.